Election Town Hall. This is our second edition. We are focusing this evening on the City of Gold, Johannesburg, Jersey, if you like. Thank you very much for joining us. My guest this evening is from the African National Congress. We have Regional Secretary Dada Morero. From the Democratic Alliance, we have Dr. Paul Palazzi. From the EFF, we have Muzi Shabalala. And from Action SA, Herman Mashaba. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Now, the city of Johannesburg is probably the most powerful commercial center on the African continent. Johannesburg generates 16% of South Africa's GDP and employs almost 12% of the national workforce. It is vital for us to focus on the city of Joburg and to discuss this evening what each of you parties represented here, what are your plans for the city after the November 1 municipal elections. The rules of engagement for this town hall are very simple. Answers should be kept brief and tight. We will be respectful of each other and hear each other out, but time allocations are non-negotiable. And with that housekeeping out of the way, let us get straight into it. We'll start with the ANC, followed by Action SA, and then EFF, followed by the Democratic Alliance. For each of you represented here tonight to introduce yourself, you have 90 seconds. I will use my stopwatch to introduce yourselves to the residents of Joburg and then to outline your commitments to the voters. You have 90 seconds. We'll start with you, Dada. And let me just get my stopwatch out so we are very fair. Just to introduce yourself and what are you promising voters and residents of Johannesburg? You can go ahead.
Okay, my name is Dada Morero, and we as the ANC are committing ourselves to at least ensure that we are able to create jobs within the city of Johannesburg, and we are estimating an environment at which we can create about 150,000 jobs with immediate effect once we are in power, and that will be implemented throughout the city. We are also committing ourselves to creating an economic growth through creating support for SMMEs or the informal economy by ensuring that we implement at least 100% of the green economy programs. We are also committing ourselves, especially to Eskom supply areas, that we are committing to sort out all the electricity challenges that they've had in the last few months to ensure that they have electricity throughout the year. We are also committing to roll out energy mixed value chain from reselling to manufacturing and sourcing raw materials to ensure that we can supply also solar and all other alternative energy mix. So those are the commitments we can make to the people of Johannesburg in short.
Thank you very much. Herman Mashaba, what is your promise to the residents of Johannesburg?
Well, thank you very much for this great opportunity. Herman Mashaba, mayoral candidate for Action SA for the city of Johannesburg, someone who served for 3 years instead of the fair for normal 5 years. So I'm the mayor who's got unfinished business in the city of Johannesburg. Inherited a city with 170 billion rands of infrastructure backlog. The city that was allowed to become a slum, where we want to work with the private sector to rebuild and reclaim that city from criminal elements and bring back the rule of law. But I think we'll start that by first cleaning up the city, bringing professional people to run the city of Johannesburg. We cannot allow a situation where we continue with this cadre deployment that our people have been subjected to the last 27 years. So our first priority, our first order of business is to clear the city of cadres and putting in professional people so that the mandate of Action SA to fight corruption, rebuild our city and deal with the rule of law can be adhered to.
All right, with some time to spare, thank you very much for that, Herman Mashaba from Action SA. We'll go now to Muzi Shabalala from the EFF. Shall we go to Dr. Mpho while we wait for Muzi to join us? Dr. Mpo, your vision for our residents.
Well, I've been going through the city for the last 5 weeks. The city of Joburg is broken. There's a breakdown of service delivery, a breakdown of basic infrastructure. As the Democratic Alliance, we want to bring the DA brand of good governance. Wherever we govern, we get things done. Where we govern, basic services are provided. So we're going to start by making sure that we bring back normality and functionality to the city of Johannesburg so people can have uninterrupted supplies of water, electricity, sanitation, clean streets, that people can have transport and roads that are surface. We're going to make sure that the city is safe. We cannot talk about growing the economy in a city that is not safe. We're going to make sure that we create a caring city. The poor will always be with us, and we will have packages available for them to facilitate their social mobility. We'll make sure the city is business friendly. If we're going to invest or attract investors into the city, we need to make sure that it's investment friendly by firstly providing basic services so businesses can thrive, but also improving how we interface with the business sector through our processes. We're going to make sure the city is inclusive through our development planning frameworks. We will make sure the city is run well through e-governance solutions, and we'll make sure that we address the digital divide. COVID-19 has called on most of us to function from home.
Your time is up, Dr. Mpo. Your time is up. All right. Thank you very much for that. I think we have definitely a good start. Muzi Sheikh Siabalala from the EFF had joined us, but is struggling at the moment. We're going to continue the discussion, and he will join us as we go along. I'm going to start with you, Herman Mashaba. You were the mayor of Johannesburg. 5 years ago, the city of Joburg faced an unprecedented situation where the ANC was then voted out of office, and we had a coalition government. You were wearing a blue T-shirt at the time in 2016 to 2019, October it was, where you led a DA-led coalition government. This time around, you're now on a green poster, on a different party. Let's start here. Do coalition governments work at all? And if so, if it works, tell us how. But if it has failed, what is the solution?
Well, I think coalition government is nothing unique to South Africa. It's something that has been practiced by democracies all over the world for the last, 100 odd years or so. So this is nothing unique to South Africa. And if you look at our country going forward, unfortunately, coalition is going to be the order of the day. Us as Section SA, we are happy to work with other parties in the event we don't get outright majority. Though we are working to get outright majority, but however, we are prepared to respect the wishes of the voters if they decide to put us into a coalition. As long as I think we want to be clear and honest with the voters that us as Action SA at local government level will never go into a coalition arrangement with the ANC. In fact, we'll not even go with them at national government. So coalitions can work, depending on obviously the respect. The reason the city of Johannesburg resigned was because of the differences with the DA. When I joined the DA, including actually leaving my business to work to unseat the ANC, which we successfully did. Unfortunately, how wrong I was because I was under the impression that DA cared about the black South Africans, and only to find no, they just really want our vote and our faces. And that I found totally unacceptable, because for them not to want to save his black people, it creates polarization of society. Today, South Africa, we are known to be the most unequal society on earth. A situation like that is unsustainable. That's the reason why I believe in social justice. I join politics so that we can save all communities, rich and poor, black, white, male, female. We must be a fair government that actually understands the historical context of our country. Unfortunately, DA is not prepared to do that.
Dr. Mpo, Herman Mashaba is saying that you, did not care for Black people as the Democratic Alliance. You were the biggest losers from the coalition falling apart. What have you learned?
Well, I don't agree with what Mr. Mashaba is saying. Firstly, we need to look at empirical data and what it says. Stats SA published a study, a 2019 survey looking at indigent services to indigent residents of various municipalities in the Western Cape across various indicators was ranked number 1 by Stats SA, which has no relationship with the Democratic Alliance. It's an independent research vehicle for this country, and it's given us credible data that where the DA governs, we take care of the indigent better than anywhere else where we don't govern. So I'm not sure what the basis is for what Mr. Mashaba is saying. I believe in data. You know, data never lies. My experience as well in the city of Johannesburg when I was MMC, I was able to roll out programs in poor neighborhoods more than in affluent neighborhoods. If you look at the programs that I rolled out in my portfolio, for instance, the substance abuse treatment centers, we started in Soweto, we went to El Dorado Park, then we went to the inner city, and then we went to Alexandra, and then we went to Westbury. So I never experienced any pushback. I never had any challenges. There was never any directive saying that we may not serve poor communities. I'm not sure where this is coming from, and I don't agree with it. What I do think went wrong, however, is that Mr. Mashaba's leadership style and the type of party that the Democratic Alliance is, there was a mismatch. The Democratic Alliance is a very diverse party. It attracts people from different walks of life, people who are highly qualified, very experienced in their own right. And it requires a leadership style that's more collaborative, consultative, and not a dictatorial leadership style. And I think that's really the issue here. It's got nothing to do with serving poor communities.
Muzi Shabalala from the EFF, if you've joined us now, Dr. Palatse has previously said that the DA will never get into bed with the Red Berets, and they will not. She will not appease the EFF. The EFF has been a kingmaker in Johannesburg in this coalition previously. What have you learned as being the kingmaker in Johannesburg, and do you think you'll be the kingmaker again? Can Muzi hear us? Okay, so he's moving to a better spot. We're gonna continue the discussion. Dada from the ANC, you guys are now the incumbent in the city of Joburg. Obviously, that was after the previous coalition government fell apart. You've also had a pretty rough few months. Two ANC mayors have passed on this year alone. Let me first extend my condolences to the ANC. You now have the mayorship. Mpho Morane is now the mayor, the ANC mayor in charge of the city of Johannesburg. What do you think the ANC will do differently? What do you think, and why do you think you guys should return to office after the 1 November elections?
Thank you very much. I think what we need to note is we only came back into power on the 4th of December 2019. And you can therefore check and track our track record between that period to now. And one of the things that we decided to do was to adopt a program called Accelerated Service Delivery, which we did on the first day we occupied office. And we instructed, of course, the late Mayor, Comrade Jeff Makubu and his team, that on a daily basis, we expected them to be in all the wards fixing gaps in service delivery, something that the previous government of Mashaba was unable to do. Ensure that street lights are working, ensure robots are working, potholes have been closed. And that was the commitment that we're able to do, and it's a program that we are still doing as the ANC. It is also important to note that we are at the level where we're thinking of bigger issues, which includes, amongst others, how do we turn around the electricity supply in Johannesburg to ensure that we bring about alternative sources of energy, so that we are not only reliant on traditional supply of electricity through generation of electricity through coal. So we are saying that communities need to start moving into alternative methods of electrification. So those are some of the things that we, as part of our innovation, and as part of the things that we'll do differently. But it is also important to point out that Mashaba did not, and he must acknowledge that in 2016, for the DA to take seat, they had to get support from the EFF. So he shouldn't claim that he unseated the ANC. In fact, it was only through the support of the EFF that they were able to occupy the seat of government. Should not have been of the EFF, they would not have been able, because they did not have elections. And we must clarify that both of them, Mashaba and Palazzi, were in that government that did not bring services to our people. Palazzi, for example, decided to close down the food bank, which was operational at the fresh produce market as MMC. Mashaba decided to sponsor his own personal NGO with 11 million of the city of Johannesburg. So they shouldn't claim, they should never claim that where the DA governs, it governs better. It's not true. It's actually a lie. And they were given an opportunity by the EFF to prove whether they've got capacity. But what has happened now, you go throughout the city of Johannesburg, it's informal settlements throughout the city of Johannesburg, because Mashaba never understood how important the rule of law is. How is it important to implement bylaws in a city? So our city, it's a mess which we are trying to correct. Now we've got 3 years to correct the mess that was created by Mashaba, and we need sufficient time. Of course, we believe in the next 5 years we'll be able to address all the mess that was created by both Mashaba and Palazzi, who were running that government.
Herman Mashaba, you would have not been mayor without the EFF. Do you want to respond to Dada?
Well, I think it's interesting when you debate with people who actually believe their own spins. I mean, it's not going to help him, because he's in government today because of buying coalition partners. As at the time when I was a DA, we never paid anyone to really be in a coalition government with us. Whereas in their particular case, they bought their coalition partners. Even up to today, they're using state resources to buy their votes. So I think it's unfortunate when you go to, as a human being, you go to an extent of believing your own lies and your own spins. People of South Africa are not stupid. We took over a government in 2016. The city that the previous mayor was calling world-class African city was the city broken, was the city used as a criminal hub. Johannesburg was the World Cup of crime, international criminal syndicates bringing counterfeit goods, bringing expired goods, hijacked buildings, and so forth. I mean, all these things are there for anybody to see. But if obviously they're prepared to believe their lies, let them continue. And you will see that if ever anyone thought ANC had a punishment in 2016, you're going to see a bloodbath this time. And we can't really wait for the 1st of November. ANC will be history, and 2024, we will finish them, because ANC requires, it's a virus that's very dangerous for this country. It requires 2 jabs. We are mobilizing the voters to bring their vaccines on the 1st of November. We start with the first jab. And come 2024, these vaccines are going to work, where we're going to put ANC in the history books, but that's where they belong, not in government.
Let's try Muzi again. I think this conversation needs to have the EFF. They've been kingmakers in the city of Joburg. Is Muzi with us, and we can just maybe move the conversation to the EFF. You like I said earlier, the EFF has been kingmakers the last time around. Do you think that you will still have that power? What are you offering voters, Muzi? Shabalala. This is where technology fails us. And I think technology is failing us tonight. We'll try again. I think it's important for us to try and to give them a fair shot, to so that they're duly represented. But to move on the conversation a little bit to Dr. Mpho, I think that we all know that service delivery is what affects people and voters in this elections. This elections is not about race. It's not about big-ish things. It's about potholes and streetlights. And the reality of it is that residents in Joburg complain of potholes. They complain of water leaks, of power outages, of illegal businesses, of dumping, of squatter camps. It's happening all over the city. And it appears that little has been done by the authorities. And we can finger point whether Herman Mashaba's government did it better than the ANC government and who's better than the other. But I think it's important to say to voters today, what will you do differently? Mpho?
Well, yes. Before I tackle that, I just want to correct a few things that were said by Dada Morero specifically. The first thing is that we're lying about our track record. I quoted empirical evidence precisely for that reason, because people like to say we're lying when we quote our track record. But these are independent research. To say we trust in this nation to run our census. It's a credible organization that gives us credible stats on an ongoing basis. And if Mr. Morero can go to the Stats SA website, please, and just look at what the data is saying about where the Democratic Alliance governs. That's the first thing. The second thing, I want to talk about the food bank in the city of Johannesburg. Now, it's common knowledge that where the ANC governs, there's an abuse of food parcels, and there's a use and misuse of food parcels to buy people, to buy loyalty, allegiance, and even to buy votes. We found that in the city when we started in 2016, that there was an abuse of the food bank. The food bank resides within Joburg Market, and it's supposed to serve people who are indigent. Yet we found that councillors were involved in the distribution of food parcels and that they were using it for political gain. And most of the time, people who were really deserving of accessing food parcels were not even accessing it. If you were not aligned to the ANC, you'd be excluded, for instance. So what we did is we changed how we approach the food bank. We put social workers in charge, and we excluded councillors from that process to eliminate interference, political interference by councillors in feeding the indigent of Johannesburg. You had to be assessed by a social worker to access food parcels. You had to demonstrate that you're really in need, and then you would access food parcels. That's what we've done. So let's just be clear. In terms of services, well, I've spent the last 5 weeks going through the city, and people are asking for water, electricity. What we see is that, yes, our infrastructure is broken down. We know that our infrastructure is old, in some parts of the city up to 50 years old. And we know that in the 27 years that the ANC has been in charge of this country, we've seen a lack of maintenance and a lack of investment in our infrastructure. And as a result, our infrastructure is no longer able to service our people. And we also know that Joburg attracts people because it's the economic hub of the country and the continent. People come to Joburg looking for opportunities. So we've got this rapid population growth against the backdrop of a lack of maintenance and investment in our infrastructure. We're going to be investing heavily in infrastructure, in maintaining, upgrading, but we also invest in future growth. We also recognize that there are areas that are still not accessing any services, not because the infrastructure is broken, but because they've just never been connected. If it's water they need, we will invest in building reservoirs. We'll get people connected to the bulk supply line. And in areas where there is no electricity, when you talk about IPPs, independent power producers, the DA is at the forefront of that battle to get municipalities to be able to purchase power from IPPs. In fact, as we speak, there's a pilot project in Western Cape where 6 municipalities are about to be Eskom free of load shedding. We'll be bringing that IP into Johannesburg and making sure that our residents here also experience uninterrupted supplies of electricity. Those are the two main issues. And then then, of course, with roads, I mean, you spoke about potholes. We've seen an increase in complaints where potholes are concerned. Since the NC took over in 2019, we've seen a closure or a non-functioning of the asphalt plant, which we normally relied on to fill potholes. And so there was this huge backlog where the ANC had to even call on the private sector to come and rescue them because they were unable to do what they called on to do by society. The Democratic Alliance will make sure that the city is functioning and that all the investment in the city to ensure that it functions is used properly and that the residents are getting a return on that investment.
Yeah. Dada, you said that the ANC will promise or is promising to create 150,000 jobs immediately. That's a very bold promise to make, because if it was that easy, why hasn't the ANC created those jobs? And I mean, realistically speaking, how do you create 150,000 jobs immediately? So, I mean, are you saying you get elected on the 5th of November, and then by the 10th of November or by the end of the year, we're going to have 150,000 jobs?
Well, these are the programs that, in fact, were disrupted by Mashaba was too big-headed to understand that government works in a different manner. And we have to now recommit ourselves to creating those jobs through programs that will, for example, the Mashaba government came in and disrupted at least 5,000 jobs that would have been created through formation of bakeries that were supported and sponsored by the city of Johannesburg in the townships. So that program itself was disrupted and destroyed by Mashaba, and it's a program that we are bringing back. In fact, it was in the department of Ms. Palatsi, who was part of the decision that they must stop the project that had created 5,000 jobs and was feeding over probably 7,000 families or so, and they destroyed that program. Two, they were committed to creation of entrepreneurs through what was called Josie at Work, without having given himself time to understand what it meant. He called it a vanity program and a corruption program of the ANC, without taking time to understand what was it meant for. And that program was meant to at least create 20,000 entrepreneurs throughout the city of Johannesburg who will have the opportunity to participate in the service delivery economy, or the economy of services. And in that way, we're sure that we'll create more jobs, we'll create more entrepreneurs who will therefore service the city and invoice the city. In that way, we're trying to say you can't have one person in the entire Soweto dealing with leak pipes when you can actually create opportunities for young people throughout Soweto through that program which is disrupted. And you could see the numbers were going high when we were in charge in 2016, were disrupted. Now, these are some of the programs we think will bring it back, and those programs will be able to help us to create the numbers that we are committing ourselves to do. And we are also hoping to create a conducive environment in Johannesburg by ensuring that we deal with matters of crime so that business could come back into the city of Johannesburg and create an environment that business will therefore contribute towards adding on the issue of job creation. So those are some of the things that would want to commit ourselves to and doing. But yes, we are making that bold statement, and will be assessed in the next 6 to 8 months. What have we done? Are we achieving that target, or it was just an empty promise? But we can tell you now, the ANC is committed to that promise and will ensure that we deliver on that promise.
Herman Mashaba, I want you to respond to Dada, but before we come to you, I want to try Muzi one last time. Muzi, I hope you can hear us now. We've been talking about the ANC's, the DA, and Action SA's plans for Johannesburg. Does the EFF think it will be a kingmaker come November 1? Technology is failing us today with Muzi, but we're going to continue the discussion. Herman, Dada Morero has said a lot. You effectively, he's accusing you of disrupting the ANC's job creation policies and job creation initiatives. Why on earth would you have done that?
Well, actually, it's interesting. Listening to the ANC, I wish you could give them more airtime and actually get this manifesto being led by more South Africans, because I can tell you they're giving away votes to us, because who's going to believe the corruption that they were busy practicing? The reason why they got punished in 2016 was obviously selling this delusional agenda and manifesto. I thought it actually stopped with former Mayor Pakistan, and they got punished for that. And it looks like they want to bring the very same programs that they got punished for. So please give him more chance. It's like I must just keep quiet and give him the opportunity, because and unfortunately for him, come 1st of November, ANC will be history in the city of Johannesburg. They're not going to be part of this government that's coming, because they are selling something that is corruption. The bakeries that he's talking about, I'm telling you, Dada, and people of Johannesburg, if ever they brought back those bakeries, we're going to close them. In fact, this time we'll close them even quicker, because we've got enough bakeries in this country. We don't have time for to reward ANC cadres with public monies. So rest assured and be aware, because you are not going to be there. I would really advise you start closing them now before we come in. Secondly, there's Josie at Work programs which you use to exploit our people through your cadres. That system where if you ever brought it back, I'm telling you, we will close it, and I would really request that you ask the city manager to start closing that program before we come in. Please give Mr. Tara an opportunity to speak, because it's a marketing gift to us.
Mr. Mashaba, I'm doing the interview here, so I'll allocate time. But Muzi, can you hear us? All right, Muzi.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. We've tried 6 times to bring you into this conversation, but I think it's important to have the EFF voice represented. Do you think that the EFF will be the kingmakers after the municipal elections on November 1st?
Thanks for the opportunity. No, we're not going to be the kingmakers. We're going to be the government in the next coming elections for simple reason. One of the reasons that makes us forced to be government, and we're going to work tirelessly, it's precisely because of the sabotage that I was going through since the show started. Because when the show started, I tried to connect, and all of a sudden we had load shedding, but that load shedding was not scheduled. And it's one of the reasons of this current government that is leading us, making sure that our lives are not better as Black people. Moving forward, in as much as we are prepared to govern in the city of Johannesburg, we have learned from these 2 administrations of the ANC and the DA that it's a failed project, and if we can make sure that we improve and learn from their mistakes and better the lives of our people. Since we launched our manifesto is clear to say how best are we going to run the city of Johannesburg. I said it before, and I'm still going to say it now, to say we have enough skills, capabilities of running the city of Johannesburg. So I hear, in as much as I've lost and missed a lot of discussions and the debate in the House, but I can tell you now that with Mashaba is our product. I think everyone else can attest to that. And the data also indicated that. But the failures of the ANC, they're the ones who brought me to be in the show very late because of this load shedding that is unscheduled and is taking place. The issues of brought forward by the ANC are they don't have any weight in any municipality, because they are the ones who brought our people to be where they are. One, in our healthcare system, our nurses and doctors, they are being overworked, and there are no people to substitute them, and they are becoming victims of the system, also victimized by the patients. Typically, here in Pegimlangin, there are cases reported of doctors and nurses being dealt with by the patient. The question is, where are the authorities that can provide a clear direction moving forward in terms of making sure that every little doctor and any healthcare system professionals or practitioner in the particular institution are being protected? There's no protection. When you come to electricity, it's a mess. When you come to water, our water, people are drinking water from different drains. So now I'm struggling to try to find light for myself. That's one of the reasons. But I'll catch up as we move. But we are clear as the government of the EFF to say we're going to make sure we better the life of our people. We provide good housing, the housing of proper housing, not these ones of the ANC, the RDP, that doesn't have any demarcation inside, and they don't provide proper dignity to the people of the city. We're going to give proper houses. We're going to make sure when you talk of a decent and a proper housing, we give a housing with a toilet inside and the toilet outside if needs be. So those are the things that are enshrined in our manifesto, and we are going to use manifesto as a guiding document, but making sure that we implement everything that is captured in the manifesto. Of course, our manifesto is informed by the research conducted and the lessons learned as we are moving and being in government from 2016 to date. Now we have seen a lot of loopholes that we need to make sure that we close those gaps and make sure we provide proper service and good health and to our people in the city of Johannesburg.
All right. Musi spoke about electricity, and electricity is probably a very big issue. Dada, I'm going to bring you in here. There has been protests in Soweto around Eskom disconnecting residents in that area because of non-payment. It's been a headache. As long as I've been a reporter or a journalist, the issue of non-compliance and non-payment of Soweto has been an issue. Now the ANC is saying, we're gonna sell, electricity, away from Eskom to the residents. The president has also stepped in, promising to resolve the matters there. I mean, how do you solve this? Are you not selling the residents a pipe dream? Considering that there is an issue of non-payment and non-compliance in the area?
Well, just to respond on those matters, and you don't want to take the approach that is taken by Chabalala here. Matters of electricity are not as simple as they may sound. One, you've got challenges of illegal connections, which are widespread throughout Soweto. And other Eskom supplied areas, which create a problem on the network. And as a result of that problem, then the network explodes or the transformers explode. And through that, then people do not have electricity. So it's not as simple as Chabalala would think. However, we've then put in place interventions to try and resolve the problems. And one of the interventions, we have agreed that the city of Johannesburg, through City Power, might be better placed, first and foremost, to take over the network and the supply of electricity in Eskom areas. Two is to ensure that you roll out prepaid meters throughout Soweto so that people can manage their own consumption, so that we contribute towards saving this scarce resource, which is power. So that is what we want to do. And thirdly, you want to then ensure that once you have rolled out prepaid meters throughout Soweto, people will then take responsibility on the usage of electricity. Remember, electricity is not just a resource that it's all over, it's easy to access, it's an expensive resource, and all of us have a responsibility to ensure we contribute towards the well-being of the country by being responsible citizens. So it's not just as simple as Musa thinks. There are a number of issues that needs to be addressed to ensure that there's continuous supply of electricity and you can keep the lights on. And that requires also citizens to participate, take an active role, and be responsible by ensuring that they consume and they pay for what they consume. It's a simple.
Dr. Mpho-Phalatse, you earlier mentioned IPPs and the DA, working towards being non-reliant on Eskom. Do you think that can fix the headache related to Soweto and elsewhere in the city?
Yes, definitely. And we're not selling a pipe dream here. This is something that we're already implementing elsewhere where we govern. I think it was in Cape Town that we had the first hydroelectric supply in Africa, actually, in the city of Cape Town. And they're experiencing less load shedding because of that. So we are working very hard in Western Cape, and I spoke about this pilot project that we have, including 6 DA-run municipalities, where we are looking at IPPs playing a much greater role in the supply of electricity and us moving away from more Eskom reliance. However, yes, the non-payment issue in Soweto is a concern that needs to be tackled head on. There are different types of non-payers in Soweto. There's people who really can't afford to pay. So with such people, even if you give them meters, it won't help. They don't have the money. We've got the expanded social package in the city. We need every indigent resident of the city registered on the expanded social package so that they can receive rebates and subsidies on their water, electricity, and other benefits attached to the ESP offering. However, there are many who can afford to pay, and those need to pay. So we need to work on
Dr. Mpo, just to jump in here, and that's the big issue that I wanted to also raise with Dada, but how do you foster a culture of payment when community members have basically chased Eskom away when they try to install prepaid meters? How do you fix that problem where people just do not want to pay?
Yes, I mean, Dada Marrero knows very well that the ANC has tried prepaid meters in the past and it's never worked. So you can't keep promising the same thing that you've tried and it hasn't worked for you. What we've seen in DA-run areas elsewhere in the country is that, like I spoke about people who can't pay, you need to first start there because you don't want to punish people who genuinely cannot afford. Those people need to be on the database that will help them to access free electricity and free water, depending on what they qualify for. However, everyone else who can pay, we need to run education campaigns. A lot of people don't understand how government works. They don't understand how we generate revenue in government. They make demands and they don't understand that revenue gets collected in exchange for the services that they get. And so those people who can afford need to be educated. Once people have been educated, then law enforcement needs to come in. And that's often an unpopular thing. And a lot of politicians don't like to say that because it's not populist, particularly during the time of elections. In the city of Cape Town, where we govern, they've done this. I mean, they once threatened to cut off the airport, for your information, because that's how serious they were about collecting revenue. And that's the kind of stance we need to have with people who can afford to pay. But of course, again, I cannot emphasize enough, we recognize there's people who genuinely can't afford, and those ones will be protected.
But just to say, I mean, you referenced Cape Town. We discussed it last week, and there was a real concern about electricity being unaffordable in the DA-governed city of Cape Town for a lot of people, and so the DA then being anti-poor in some way. Muzi, your party has promised a lot of free things in your manifesto. How are you going to make the issue of electricity in Soweto and electricity more generally sustainable?
Muzi,
I asked, are you going to make the issue of electricity sustainable?
Yeah, thanks. Apologies. I'm having a difficult time here with Eskom. It's fine. How am I going to deal with the issue that I'm confronted with right now, not to participate in the show fully? I hear colleagues here in the studio or differently in the different places. They are talking a lot of issues, especially this one of Eskom. I think Mpo made a very critical point by saying there are a lot of people in Soweto who can't afford to pay, but there are those who can afford to pay. And when we did our own research and interview people in Soweto, they have indicated that they are keen and they are interested to pay. But due to the unemployment that is skyrocketing on a daily basis, it makes them not to be in a position to pay their electricity. But now, if the city of Johannesburg is going to make sure that they get the revenue from its citizens, so what they need to do, we need to make sure that everyone participate in the mainstream economy. By so saying, I'm simply saying, let us create employment for our people. The employment we cannot rely only on government to be the one that creates employment. Also, other sectors, private sector, they must also play the role in terms of creating employment. So by so doing, we are going to make sure that everyone else is in a position to pay the services. Of course, our people, they are not happy by not paying their services. They want to pay services, and they don't want to be surviving through the hands out. Now, the handouts are going to be stopped. Definitely sure, there are those who are taking a social grant, any social grant that you can think of. Those people are people that are going to be put in a special indigenous policy to make sure that they benefit in everything else that it's due to them, as opposed to the current situation that is taking place now. People, what is meant for them, they're not getting there. What the ANC does, takes the food parcels that are meant for poor people. They start campaigning with those food parcels. They start to give out and buy people to vote for them, and which is something that we condemn as the EFF. We are saying we're not going to continue to allow ANC to do that to our people. Let our people have a decent life and decent job so that they can live and have that dignity. Because if you can be a man or a woman that can be in the position to provide for his or her own family, it gives you a dignity, it gives you respect to your children and everyone else. So with that said, we are saying we are going to make sure that the city of Johannesburg, it becomes a different place for everyone that lives in it. So the ANC and the DA have proven to the people of Johannesburg that they have failed them. So we are urging people from Johannesburg to vote for the EFF and make sure that they give us that power to run the city of Johannesburg, so that we can run the city of Johannesburg differently and better than the ANC and the DA.
Going to you, Herman Mashaba, you spoke about earlier the derelict state of the inner city. You talked about hijacked buildings. This has been something that you've been speaking about for a long time now. How do we fix the problem of the inner city?
Well, a very, very important project, and I think we need to intensify. I had already started it. I made a pronouncement on the 1st of December 2016 during my 100 days that we want to take back these hijacked, derelict, abandoned buildings, give them to the private sector to build affordable accommodation for our people, and turn the city of Johannesburg into a construction site. And I started engagement of all the other parties I was working with, started engaging the private sector. By the time I left, we had already identified 600 properties to be given to the private sector. By the time I left, we had already, as council, given away 154 buildings to the value of 32 billion rands to create permanent jobs, not this job opportunities that the ANC is talking about. Permanent jobs supported by skills development, like artisans training to create bricklayers, electricians, plumbers, to create groundbreaking 14,000 jobs out of the 154 buildings. I had committed to people of Johannesburg that I was going to give away a minimum of 100 buildings per year until such time that we can get that free city working again. In fact, today, if you look at the press statement I released, I need a report from the city manager as to why that project was stalled. We need to take back our city from criminal syndicates. Firstly, we've got, and unfortunately, I'm sure Dada knows very well, the deep involvement of ANC in these hijacked buildings and the schemes over the years. So we've got to deal with this. We need a criminal justice system that must react to this. We need to deal with the issue of illegal immigration in the city of Johannesburg. Johannesburg was built South Africa as a whole was built at the back of migrants, and we want to continue on that trajectory. But we cannot really have a borderless country. We need people
Mr.
of the world to come. Yes.
Mr. Mashaba, I mean, some may say that you are almost xenophobic in your approach when it comes to the issue of migrants. Why does fixing the Johannesburg city have to be, almost, take a xenophobic slant?
Who said? Is that other people, or you saying I'm xenophobic?
No, I'm saying there is that assertion that every time there's a talk about renewal of the inner city, it comes down to sort of migrants taking over. Why must that be the conversation?
Yes, because the majority of people in these hijacked buildings are undocumented for a national fact. Go into that city, get the subs and metro police to go and raid those buildings. Majority of the people they are undocumented for a national. Now you can imagine, as government, government, when we put together a budget, we put together a budget based on the number of people of the city of Johannesburg provided to us by Stats SA. But now you go and raid these buildings, you find people dealing in counterfeit goods, people dealing in expired goods. You know, are you aware South Africa today is a dumping country for counterfeit goods and expired goods? Do you think we must just sit back and say that it's okay? Not registered, they don't pay taxes on this. So we've got to deal with this. So if you look at our constitution regarding immigration, so if
Sure.
you are saying I'm xenophobic, then the authors of our constitution are xenophobic, because the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, our laws are saying people must come. South Africa must invite people of the world to come here, but they must come here legally. And when they're here in South Africa, they must respect the laws of the country. And
Yes.
if not, the Department of Home Affairs has got a constitutional responsibility to send them back to where they came from. It's not me, it's in the Constitution. So if you want to blame anyone, then blame the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. And you look at any other country, there isn't any country in the world that operates under such policy considerations as far as immigration is concerned. Why should then South Africa be different?
Dada, is there a way to deal with the issue of the inner city and the regeneration there without talking about the migrant issue? Is it something that you just have to talk about hand in hand?
Yeah, the problem is Mashaba is sitting somewhere and thinks there's nothing that's happening in the country. And that's a problem. There's nothing government is doing. No one, everybody's just sitting and folding their arms. And that's the problem. Because he wakes up in the morning, he opens his tap, then there's water. He lights his lights, there's lights. But he behaves as if there's nothing being done. So let me just come to the question, because it's important to sometimes bring this man back, because he lives in some world of his own. And then he thinks he will then mislead the entire South Africa. Well, by the way, he's a son of a migrant worker himself, a Mozambican migrant worker, which he took very long to admit and accept publicly, because he's not proud of his origins as a South African citizen. So it's important that we also remind him of that. And in fact, the matter of the inner city and hijacked buildings, he says he dealt with 152 buildings. I think the right question we should ask now, where are those buildings? Who were they given to? And what is happening now with those buildings? And so once we get an answer of that, then we'll be able to probably understand what he has done in the city, which he actually has messed up the city, because we had a beautiful program, a program which was called the Inner City Program, which was meant to take this building and give them to small business. And at least 30 of those, we can account that they are operational, they are owned by small black businesses, they were renovated, and now they're running them properly with tenants. Now asking the 152, where did they go? Who are the owners? And what have they done with? Now, once we have that answer, then you'll understand what this man has done in the city of Johannesburg. He can make noise, but we all know that he was benefiting choice. But I think it's also important to deal with the matter of undocumented migrants, which I think the
Very quickly, Dada.
and Home Affairs has been doing so much. But our debate cannot just be reduced to deporting people back who comes back 3 days later. And will continue to do so, because where they come from, they are hungry, they are starving, and they've got families to feed and mouths to feed, and they've got bigger challenges. Now we have to think as a country, how do we contribute towards resolving economic problems in the entire continent? We are not an island, South Africa. We're part of the African continent and the global, the world. So we have to play our role in as far as contributing towards making Africa a better continent. So it cannot be just short-sighted and just think about Johannesburg alone. Before he even wins, before he even becomes a councillor, he thinks he'll be a mayor.
Okay. All right, we have to wrap up our discussion now. I think it has been very fruitful, and we've gotten a lot of insight from the different political parties. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Mpho Phalatse. You have 60 seconds to wrap up your pitch. What are you pitching to the residents of Johannesburg, and why should they vote for you? We'll start with you, followed by Muzi from the EFF, then followed by Herman Mashaba, and then the Democratic Alliance. In that order, Dr. Mpho Phalatse, you can go ahead.
Well, people of Johannesburg, I come under the DA banner. The Democratic Alliance is the only party in this nation that has demonstrated an ability to govern, including in Johannesburg from 2016 to 2019. And I want to bring back the DA brand of good governance to restore our city. The city of Joburg is the land of opportunity. It is the city of gold. People come here in search of opportunities, and a lot of them end up disappointed. They end up on the street because the government that is in power now is unable to help bring those dreams to life. We, as the Democratic Alliance, want to partner with residents to restore the shine to our city of gold and make sure that it makes good on its promise to be a land of opportunity, the economic hub not only of South Africa and of this country. We will restore Joburg to normality, to functionality. Within a short space of time, we'll turn it around, and then we will move it into the information age. We'll make it a smart city and ensure that every resident of Joburg is connected with the global community and is able to benefit from the global economy. We can do this together. Give us your vote on the 1st of November, and we will not disappoint, because where we govern, we get things done.
Herman Mashaba from the Action SA, what is your pitch to the voters and residents of Johannesburg?
Well, fortunately enough, I've got record of 3 years of government, which is actually recognized by the DA. You've heard Dr. Phalatse talking about the sterling work that I did, which the DA was against. Despite the fact that the DA was against what I was doing, I did it. He opened drug rehab center, extended operating hours of clinics. We insourced people who were exploited by security guards and cleaners, were exploited by the ANC and the Tripartite Alliance. So we are the government that is going to be there to fight corruption. We are going to put professional public service, where for you to really be in public service, it's not going to be about who you know, it's going to be about the skills that you bring, whether you're black, white, female, not female. As long as you're South African, you'll be given the opportunity to work for this municipality so that you can change the lives of our people. I think we are grateful that both the ANC and the EFF recognizes our leadership as the right party, and that's the reason why we are going to be the government of the city of Johannesburg.
Muzi Shabalala, your turn. What are you promising voters? You can go ahead, Muzi.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me again. As you know, that I'm not even a mayoral candidate of the EFF, because EFF believes in making sure that we win first. They go and have their own person who qualifies to be the mayor and make sure that it's going to give proper services and the guidance to the people of Johannesburg. Now, that's part number one. You'll remember under the stewardship of Herman Mashaba in the city of Johannesburg, we've tabled numerous number of the motions differently, and we even propose, because we understand the hardship and the struggle of our people that are going through on a daily basis. The one that was very exciting for us is this one of saying the clinics and must open 24 hours. And that was adopted and it's been piloted around the city of Johannesburg, because our people don't get sick only during the day. They get sick even at night. So we need proper services that it's a proof to say we care and we are prepared to take care of our people. Now, there are quite a number, even the one of the Metropolis officials, we said they must get the allowance that is due to them, which is the city of Johannesburg under the stewardship of Mashaba and the ANC. They were not giving them that allowance that was due to them. So those are the things that are a record that you can prove to the people of Johannesburg to say, whatever we do or whatever we say, we deliver. maybe one of the things that I need to perhaps echo to the voters of Johannesburg to vote for the
Muzi,
EFF.
you have to wrap
When
up
we took
now.
over, come again?
You have to wrap up.
I'm wrapping up. Yes, I'm saying we are going to improve the lives of our people. We're going to provide clean water, proper electricity, dignified housing for our people that has toilets inside, and making sure that every little city or any area that is unoccupied in the city of Johannesburg is taken care of. It's properly cleaned. Our people are going to get employment. That's the promise that we make, because we know the city of Johannesburg has a lot of money, and we are going to also give a proper tax for our people to increase the revenue for the city of Johannesburg.
Dada, the ANC has just appointed a new mayor. Will that person be, will Mpho Morane be the mayor if the ANC wins after the elections? And then your pitch for Joburg residents. Why should they vote for the ANC?
Well, the call to the voters of Johannesburg is to continue to give us a mandate to be able to lead the city and deliver on ensuring that we can continue to ensure that there's a reliable electricity supply throughout the city of Johannesburg, committing ourselves to creation of jobs, especially targeting young people and of course women who are over the age of 35, committing ourselves to fighting crime, women abuse and alcohol and drug abuse in our communities, and we're also committed to ensuring that there's food security through also, amongst other things, provision of food supplies to the poor and the needy who form part of our indigent program, so that we ensure that communities, at least our people, can live with food in our stomach. Of course, the ANC will come back and finalize in their processes, internal process, who the candidate mayor would be. So we'll know after the 1st of November who the actual, the final candidate of the ANC in Greater Johannesburg would be. So that is still open in the processes internally in the ANC. And we do commit ourselves to the people of Johannesburg to creating a safer and a clean Johannesburg through implementation of the JMPD 10+, which includes inspectors, includes bylaw enforcement, and so on and so on, to ensure that we can build a better city for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, each and every one of you, for joining us this evening. Thank you, Dr. Mpho Palatse from the Democratic Alliance, Herman Mashaba from Action SA, Muzi Shabalala from EFF, and Dada Morero, who's the Regional Secretary of the ANC in Johannesburg. Thank you for joining us for this very important discussion. It has been a pleasure having this robust conversation between the four leading political parties in Johannesburg. We wish you a good night, and for more election coverage, go to www.news24.com/elections. Good night.